Yeah, advancement. Do you have any advice for the couples and individuals seeking advancement or promotion in international schooling?
Well, I think there's huge opportunities, uh, at a much younger age, particularly if you're a bit of a risk taker. If with all the startup schools in the UAE and in China, it really is possible to sort of get in at the ground floor and grow into roles. You might be the only history teacher in a startup school, so pretty much going to end up being head of history very, very early, perhaps at an earlier stage than you would have been, and you still might end up in a school of sort of 4, 5, 6, even 1,000 students after 5 years, depending on the growth. So all of that can work really well, and the same really applies to senior leaders. And I've seen very talented young teachers taking those opportunities, both in the UAE and in China, to actually get onto the sort of next rung of the ladder at a very early stage. I think the other bit of advice I would give is that the majority of international schools, like 99% of international schools, are for profit, and that is a very different animal to what a normal British teacher in either the state or the independent sector is going to be used to. These schools are well resourced, often better resourced than a UK state school, but they do have owners, and the owners have a lot of control, and that is a very different environment to be in. Having said that, that impacts more at the top level when you're running a school, or at the senior level, whether you're a school principal, head teacher level. It doesn't make a lot of difference on the ground who owns the school if you're a teacher, although it might impact on your conditions, as Samantha mentioned. So I think those sorts of things. So it's about, all of this is about doing your homework, doing your research, finding out who your employer is going to be. You're not going to have the same level of protection that you'd have, with the unions in the UK. But by the same time, the benefits are massive. You can really kickstart your career. You can have phenomenal opportunities of gaining really good experience. The UAE, Dubai in particular, has an annual inspection regime. You can get a lot of inspection experience in Dubai very, very quickly. That it would take 15 years. 3 years in Dubai would give you the experience of 15 years in the UK in terms of inspection. So you can really get a lot of opportunities there. So I think there's real benefits, both financial and professional, of working abroad. But you really just have to be a little bit streetwise and savvy around what the contracts are like and who you are. And as Samantha said, be really flexible. You've got to be flexible. You can't just go in there and say my contract says this, because you're not going to get very far at all.
I think to add to that, although you come with relevant experience, you've been a head teacher or a senior leader, and you've done some great stuff in the UK. But it's really a case of you don't know what you don't know. It's a completely different landscape. You will have some of the skills, perhaps organised and be able to do timetabling, but you're coming into a completely different context. And that strategy plan that you wrote for your previous role in the UK doesn't just nicely translate to the role that you're going to now find yourself in. With COVID, certainly, children, as we know, have been out of, formal sort of schooling, in-school schooling, for nearly a year in most countries. So if you're joining a school in September, the curriculum that you teach is going to be different. It is going to need to be very adaptable to where the children currently are. So I know a lot of people that have come out internationally because they've done great things in the UK and thought, well, it'll be a bit like retiring. It'll be a bit like a holiday. It was a nice way to see out the end of my career, and absolutely not. It's exciting. It's engaging. It's exhilarating. You have to learn very, very quickly. You're going to be inspected probably every year on things that you never knew about, whether it's the Arabic curriculum or Mandarin. So yeah, it's definitely a pacey experience, but absolutely brilliant for skills learning. If you can do it internationally, then I think, wow, you're going to be a great leader.
I'm just struck by the practicality of value or possibility of a successful British state head teacher going and taking up immediately, without prior experience, an international school headship. What's your thoughts on that? Just going from the world of the the UK state system straight into international school headship in anywhere for that matter.
Yeah, I think actually they're well placed. I think if you've been working in the state sector, all schools are full on. There's no getting away from it. Whether you're in an independent school or a state school, you are working hard. This is not an easy career wherever you are. We know that independent schools have smaller classes and so on. But if you've been managing the state sector in the UK and you come to a country like Dubai or the UAE, you're incredibly well placed, because the paperwork that you're expected to maintain in the state sector and the paperwork that you're expected to maintain in the UAE is very, very similar.
Okay.
The differences would just simply be working for owners.
Yeah,
for me. That's a really big change. You're not working for a borough or local authority. You're working for owners. So there's a business acumen that you have to learn quite quickly.
Yeah, I think it's the business side. I mean, my role is principal and CEO for a reason, because we have to I head up both the educational side, and I also have to head up the operational business side. Now, obviously, I've got a lot of people around me to support me on both aspects of that, but I do have to understand, the school as a business. And I know some experiences in the UK would prepare you for that. The independent schools and perhaps some of the academies, where they've got greater autonomy over their finances. But it's a big learning curve, and I think one of the deficiencies of teaching as a profession is that you suddenly get thrown into headship, and you're expected to be able to run a business, and being a deputy head doesn't prepare you for that. And actually making the books balance, even if they only have to balance to not making a profit, is still a really important skill. So I think that increasingly we're seeing head teachers taking on MBAs or executive business degrees and so on, because I think there's a huge piece to learn and develop there.
I think as well, it's important that it's not for everybody. Some people might come and do a year or two and go back to the UK. That's not a failing. It's really hard to be in a country that you don't have an affinity with, where you haven't settled, where your children didn't settle, your spouse, where you didn't realise just how much of a challenge it was going to be in a different context, or that your parents, who may be elderly, relied on you more than you thought. It's okay. It might not work for you, and you find yourself back in the UK. That's not a failing. You took an experience, you took a challenge. There's this myth that if you come internationally, you have to stick it out, or you failed, or you can't get a role back in the UK because you bottled the UK and left. That's got to stop. That's just got to stop. It's much more complex than that.